think this is a terribly interesting session, and I'm really sorry that we're starting a bit late, but what we have is time. We have time. We're starting a bit late because of technology issues, but we've overcome that. So we are ready for Industry 4.0. So this is going to be an interesting session to the extent that Katrina is going to present for a while and kind of give us a background to the book which underlies all of this and the work that they've been doing. But then also get into a type of workshop session, as I understand it. She'll explain exactly how that works. She's got very nice color-printed workshop packs for us to all use and take home. And so she'll be essentially on the floor for 45 minutes to an hour or so. And then I think we'll maybe then see where we are at that point and decide whether we want to discuss some of the issues and that as well. Katrina was one of the founding members of the Post-Crash Economic Society at the University of Manchester. Google that if you haven't. And then formerly she was the head of campaigns at Thinking Economics. She's one of the editors of what is, I hope she has a copy of somewhere, what is I think a very important book, which goes through around about 9 different schools of thought, if you will, in the interest of diversifying the way we think about economics and tourism. I saw someone earlier who actually had a copy. Disappointed that she didn't ask for a signature or an autograph. But in any event, she was an editor on that volume as well, and I'm sure she'd be happy to reflect on some of the issues there. So I won't take too much time. I have a few questions of my own, but I'm looking forward to what you have to say, and I hope you are too. Over to you.
Right, thank you very much. Yes, so I'm Katrina Watson from Manchester a couple of days ago to be here. Very exciting to see the progression we're doing in the UK is now growing and getting off the ground here as well. So one of the things that we campaign for at Regional Economics is something called pluralism, which if you're already involved with the group here at WITS, within Regional Economics for Africa, you might have heard of, but not everyone will have done. So I'm going to start off with a bit of a presentation explaining what exactly pluralism is, why we think it's important for economics education, and then we're going to break out into a workshop of exploring some of the different things. And the idea of this is that it introduces you to what economics education could be and should be, rather than what people are getting in universities today. I'm from Regional Economics. We're a student network who campaigns for pluralist economics. We've got groups all over the world. We started in the UK in 2013, and now we're all over now. This workshop was funded by that's a map showing squares of economics. You're not really allowed to question that theory. You're not really taught any other theories. Often people are taught from the same textbook that has the same ideas. It's very rarely updated given what's going on in the real world. The textbook didn't change in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. It hasn't changed in terms of widening inequality worldwide, and we can't really expect it to change as other crises occur. But that isn't, even though that's what we get taught in universities, that isn't everything in economics. You've got all sorts of different schools of thought. You've got Keynesian economics, Marxist economics, Schumpeterian economics, institutional economics, Austrian economics, all of which we're going to have a look at in this workshop. We're all very different from neoclassical, but in your economics degrees, none of them get a look in. And yet they're all sort of old school alternative theories, but more modern ones. You've got ecological economics, feminist economics, complexity, innovation. Economics relates to pretty much everything that we do: history, sociology, geography, political science. But again, none of these subjects are even mentioned usually in the standard economics. Okay. So, pluralism, that is exactly what pluralism is. It would be incorporating all these different ideas and all these different schools of thought into your education, into your way of thinking. So there's 3 kinds of pluralism. One of the international networks, who I'm not sure how active they are anymore, but the International Student Initiative for Pluralism in Economics, or a CPE, wrote an open letter to the world's universities and economists, and they demanded 3 kinds of pluralism: theoretical, methodological, and interdisciplinary. And yeah, you can see the open letter on that website if you want to look at it. So theoretical pluralism is allowing the coexistence and equality of different schools of thought. So economics degree with theoretical pluralism would teach you feminist economics, Marxist economics, development economics, alongside neoclassical, and it would give equal weighting towards them and let you make your own mind about which you think is most relevant. So for students saying one school is better than the other, it's about allowing students to use the critical thinking and use the tools that you gain in the degree to make their own minds up. Methodological pluralism is about doing things in different ways, so you might approach a problem in different ways. So for example, feminist economics has a different methodology to neoclassical because it looks, the agents that they use represent men and women, whereas neoclassical has one type of agents supposed to represent everybody. Austrian economics is much more about analysing theories and concepts and writing essays, whereas other types of economics might be a lot more mathematical tools. So yeah, for students that would mean getting to know all these different tools, being taught to use them all, and again, deciding for yourself which is best. Interdisciplinary pluralism is about economics being open to input from other social sciences. I think a lot of economists suffer from this kind of false idea of superiority. They think that because economics is mathsy, that it's better than other social sciences and it can give you the correct answer, whereas something like psychology or history might be able to. Interdisciplinary pluralism is about saying that this is wrong and actually we should be taking insights from all these different schools and they're just as valuable as being able to draw a graph. So yeah, for students that would mean being able to understand economics in a broad sense, in a context rather than just on its own. So yeah, that on the left, that's pluralism, lots of different ideas, lots of different theories. This on the right is not pluralism. So it's not like I said, it's not replacing one thing over the other. It's not about one being right, one being wrong. Nor is it saying, oh yeah, anything. You can just talk about anything. A lot of these schools, a lot of economists will say, oh no, you can't just teach anything, but all these schools that we're going to talk about today are well researched, they're run by intelligent people, and they have valid arguments. So, yeah, it's a professional process, it's a dialogue between different views, different viewpoints, and it's also about an attitude, having a critical examination of assumptions and methodologies. If you're enabled and empowered to develop your own theories, then that will give you the power to get rid of these Western theories and develop ones that are suitable for you rather than having these models imposed on you. It can also make discipline stronger. If you're constantly critiquing and improving, the theories will get better and we'll be better placed to solve economic problems like poverty, climate change, inequality, that sort of stuff. So, what are we doing about it? We decided to put together a reader. The idea is to supplement first year courses and for the general public who aren't learning about any of these different schools of thought. There it is. And we got contributions from 10 different academics in different schools of thought. All kind of experts in their relative, all of them experts in their own fields. And put it into the book, which the idea is that we're now selling all over the world. So what you can find in there is each chapter introduces readers to the theory, methods and key concepts of each school of thought, and it gives you some real world application of that theory. Again, like I say, it's a small thing, but it's just starting to open people's eyes that there are other things out there, and it's not meant to be, it's not going to tell you everything you need to know about feminist economics, but it can offer you a platform into that and get you interested. So, what we're trying to achieve with that is reach a wide audience, mainly economic students, but also the general public. Again, practice what we preach and giving each school of thought equal importance next to neoclassical, and allowing readers to make up their own minds. Some of the schools what you'll find in the book completely disagree with each other, but that's kind of the point, that you can read them and decide what you think. So yeah, the point is to enable the next generation of students and thinkers to embrace the discipline in its entirety, to encourage them to ask questions, question answers, and dare to rethink economics. So that is now exactly what we're going to do. We've got this workshop, and it's basically, I'm going to hand out these booklets. They each have 2 pages on each school of thought. I'm going to I'm going to ask you to get into 10 groups of 3 or 4 people, and give you each a school of thought. Alright, guys at the back. Are you all now ready with your policy recommendation, Prime Minister? I'm going to ask one person from each school of thought. There are a couple of schools which have two groups, so if we'll just have one from each school. So if your group speaks in this one, then the other group can speak in the next one, if that's alright. So yeah, you've got 2 minutes to make your recommendation for what you're going to do. So could we first have someone from one of the ecological economics to present?
The less value or reliability of the commodities, which are oil, which are gold, and gold, platinum, and all of that. So that was our reason for why the economy crashed. And now the solution would be, we looked at the theory of consumption. We needed to reduce consumption of our natural resources in order to boost the value of the natural resources now, so that we can increase consumption in the future. So now we thought of, if we looking in terms of building again a sustainable stock market, we need to look at assurance of people. How can we make people trust the market again? How can they be more reliable? And we looked at elements of agriculture. One of the guys thought about the control function of the theory of the donut, that we can use that theory of the donut to increase and boost agriculture in terms of with the natural resources in the world.
Great, thank you very much. Could we have someone from feminist economics? If you want to stand up in your groups as well, that's also fine.
I want to present feminist economics. So with the stock market crash, there would obviously be job losses and a reduction in consumption. And with that, we would then propose that women actually be paid, or people be paid in the home for jobs that normally would go unnoticed and unpaid for. So if my household needs the child to be cared for, my laundry needs to be washed, the dishes need to be washed, and I need someone to clean our home, I've effectively created 4 jobs immediately. And if the neighbor also has the same needs in their home, then we can assume that the next household would also need 4 people to do those jobs, whereas in the past, or not looking within feminist economy, those jobs would be just handed down to the women to do for free. Similarly with mowing the lawn, if the boys next door, you can ask them to mow the lawn, or if the female next door can mow the lawn, she can do it. And so you increasing jobs, and if you pay them whatever you have, it would therefore increase consumption as well, because we would use that money back into the economy to pay others or to buy foods and other products. And then secondly, we would also encourage flexible working hours to allow people to do more than just one task. So as women, we are not limited to just the work we do in the firms or traditional firms. We also have work to do in the home and in the families and societies. If people have flexible working hours, they can do both tasks and allow for other people to do, if there's more flexibility in how we do work, people are more open to do things that they like to do, and most likely they'll increase innovation and increase productivity, and therefore increase market share in GDP. Thank you.
I can't really explain what that would be, but we will have a program where people will be encouraged, automatically signed up to buy shares with their portion of their income. So everyone who's working, everyone who has an income would take a portion of that income and buy shares, right? So after they've reached a minimum level that would secure or sort of reshape the economy, then they have the option of pulling out of the program. And we have a propaganda campaign with a one-man person who's going to sort of advertise this thing on TV so that people can be encouraged to give up a portion of their income and buy shares. So there'll be the whole opt-in, opt-out thing after the economy is secure.
We advise the Prime Minister to be philosophical. Basically, the government stock market crash should not be viewed as a problem, but rather it's an end of a cycle of bad decisions, like bad investments which were made before. So basically, it's like a self-correction mechanism. So basically, the key thing is to apply free market policies, and an option that the government can do is maybe to allow other competing currencies to be available in the economy. For example, maybe Bitcoin or something. So in summary, our approach is not something that we views the human as being more complex, and therefore our decisions cannot be made based on past behavior, but rather on philosophy as human. Thank you.
From different points of view, we said that firstly, if we look at it from a perspective of work, we'd like them to spend more. And to do so, we thought, okay, why don't we, Prime Minister, let's just decrease taxes for a while, just to try and attack that, and and that's where we look at it first, because what complexity says is that if the ant would just go for one donut, every ant would just do it. So, and that's what basically what we're doing.
We start first to check the institutional culture which is prevailing, which has led the market to crash. Firstly, we encourage the accountability and good governance, and also not through propaganda, but through conscientizing the community on how to save and how to spend. Because we believe that once the market has crashed, even the poor of the poorest are affected. Therefore, they need to spend wisely. We also need to improve the government and the private sector relationship. This, through small businesses, will encourage small businesses, which includes street vendors. Also, we will make sure that we are encouraging the locals who are doing businesses with international investors to make sure that they are winning the international investors' confidence. Furthermore, we will also like to make sure that the policies which are being put in place, they are inclusive. All people are included. There is no one who will be left at the periphery of the economy. Thank you.
On how we trade, the buying and selling of the shares in the first place, so that investment is not just on a financial level but also a social level, and there is greater commitment from the people involved in that exchange, so that they also are able to educate themselves about the community or the context in which they are trading and whatever getting involved with. So it also increases their own kind of understanding of the risk that they would kind of impact upon. Yeah.
Okay, so with the problem at hand, the stock market crash, we looked at a loss in pensions. Since, the book says social class, we looked at the workers and capitalists. So the Marxist is a capitalist who exploits the workers, who owns the assets, in this case, of the stock market. So in this case, the Marxists would not be really affected, so the working class would be affected rather. So our recommendation was, the question was, how do we reimagine an economy not based on market fundamentalism? So we answered this with nationalized assets that capitalists won't own. So the answer was independently generate the capital that foreign aid will eventually pull out if we nationalize, because there was a conversation about nationalization a while back, and there was what's the word? The assumption that foreign investors would actually pull out of our local investments or whatever, stocks or assets or whatever. So in this case, nationalize, and then with that, make sure that we can independently generate that capital to fill up that gap. Also, in doing so, it promotes independence for African countries. What else? Also, capital invested in markets is a surplus squeezed from the labor markets. Therefore, we would give them the true value of their labor.
Yeah, and just to add on that, because of studying from economics and law and bringing the two worlds together, because Marxist economists are all about, okay, to protect the working class, we should empower the trade unions. So with regards to giving that surplus to the workers, we could actually recognize this as where the stock market crashes, because we know that corporations will be more inclined to change people because now they're losing money and have to strive on making money off assets. So yeah, maybe just change the laws to make sure that the people are protected against further exploitations during the time frames.
What constrains the economy is when it's less stable. So when the stock market crashes, the value of money is going to go down, and therefore there'll be less spending. So to create spending and demand, we suggest that the government be active in this space and spend government resources, thereby creating jobs and employing people who can then earn, and whilst at the same time reassuring the market and boosting their confidence. We also think that what has led to the stock market crash is that there were not enough regulations. So we're going to regulate it and decrease the salaries of the people who own shares in the stock market. We're also going to regulate the auditors and the audit companies. And we're also going to limit the amount of money that we can take out of the country so that there's always resources that are left inside. Thank you.
Alright, amazing. So that's just some of the things that you could expect in a pluralist classroom. You could have all these ideas, debating over different things. We're going to do one more little exercise like this, and then we're going to open the floor up for questions. So the next one, this one you've been advising the Prime Minister on policy. This one is Prime Minister again, this time it's a bloke. He's a very honest man, and he's helping his mum move into a new house. And whilst he was helping her, he just happened to find $10 billion down the back of the couch. So he doesn't want to keep it for himself, because he's got a responsibility to his people. But he doesn't know what to do, so he's called you all in again as pluralist economists. So if you could go back into your groups, and I'll give you another 10 minutes and discuss what you're going to do, what you're going to tell the Prime Minister he should do with this £10 billion.
So one of the largest greenhouse gas contributors is the meat industry, and it's one of the more, it is something we could do without more easily than getting rid of the fossil fuel industry, which at the moment most of our civilization depends on. The idea is to invest in fake meat production because it's very difficult to create cultural shifts. It's far easier to produce better substitute products rather than trying to persuade everybody to change their consumption habits. And the research is, it's only a small amount of research costs to both improve the taste and make it far closer to meat, and also to reduce the cost. It's the most effective way to reduce our greenhouse emissions, and also the large agricultural cost of producing feed, not just for people, but to be eaten by animals, which you lose most of the nutritional value of, because you only pass about 5% of nutrition every time you every time you have like an intermediate animal in between.
So, we didn't like literally outline what we're going to do with every penny, obviously, but we just thought as feminist economists, what do we think? Let me just look at the notes. Okay, so we thought we'd use part of the money to invest in technology and research and development rather than having to stay at home and, you know, use that extra time maybe outside of work. Just invest in these technologies and potentially nationalise them to improve in the ability of people to go back to work and not worry about those, you know, people that are reliant upon them. Also, you know, just invest in national healthcare if you've already got a system, or make it a thing if you don't. That's going to massively relieve the burden of, you know, everyone if there's a free service which can help look after, you know, your loved ones essentially. Also, we thought, you know, use some of that money for benefits for people who've got kids, benefits for people that are primary caregivers, subsidising the services, which is going to relieve some of that responsibility. So, you know, that's childcare services, care homes, or even, you know, nurses, and or create job roles for people to go and look after other people's relatives while, you know, they have to go back to work. Yeah, that's where we basically thought we'd spend the majority of the money: benefits, subsidies, research and development.
A slightly different angle to the previous two, just because as the cooperative mindset that we have, we firstly went back to our values of like fairness and transparency, and it wasn't just seeing this as money that could be spent by us, but actually what we questioned was actually the source of this $10 billion in the first place, and how, like, to us it was like, okay, the first thing that we saw was $10 billion doesn't just fit in an old couch. So this honest man is clearly being dishonest, and you know, for us it's important to understand where things have been derived from, like what preceded this that we have on the slide. So if it's been accumulated in an illegitimate way, then we want to understand, because it's going to drive things in the future. And yeah, so we would want to suggest that we would use some of that money for an investigation into him.
Putting the money into a big monitoring and evaluation exercise of the state infrastructure to see if policy is really responsive to the needs that have been put forward to it, and create better monitoring systems. And with that as well, into policing and enforcement of the policies in the country, and strategic investment into things like the National Development Plan, or whatever guiding documents there are for best strategic output of this money. Thank you.
If you get an education in economics per se, you get a certain sum of money after you get the degree or whatnot, and you're able to implement what you have learned, and the whole behavior of the whole economy will be changed from there.
Because government produced money creates problems. So as an advice for that $10 billion is to invest in the bitcoins, the other currency that is now operating parallel to the central bank money. Thank you, Prime Minister.
To me, but no. Because since the working class is always exploited and all of that, we could give it to them to buy assets and make income from their assets instead of working for someone else, while not seeing the true value of their work. And then part was thinking, okay, but then why not invest in things like maybe education to enable people to keep themselves because they're working properly and things of that nature. And yeah,
Contributions. That's basically, again, like I said, what pluralism looks like. Lots of different people, lots of different ideas, all being allowed to speak to the Prime Minister and give their recommendations, and then the Prime Minister will make a decision based on merits of the case. Feel free to keep your booklets. That's pretty much all we've got time for in terms of the workshop. Now I'd like to invite you to put some questions for me. Ready to play?
Hopefully I can project my voice a bit. So can I ask, in these scenarios, the leaders who are prepared to listen, what do you do in a scenario where you have a president or a prime minister who is only prepared to listen to, say, big corporate power? How do you get these pluralist things into the hearing of those leaders, but also how do you ensure that not only do they hear those things, but they actually listen and do things with that? Because quite often the big leaders, as soon as you start talking on these bases, they kind of, no, they don't want to hear. So how do you get this pluralism in? Also in comparison to the big, powerful lobbyists coming from, say, that, what was it called, the neoclassical economic.
Yeah. Is your point on the same thing?
No, just that I want to line them up so that you answer them at the same thing. I mean, answer them so you don't have to come back. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, I'll take 2 at a time.
I think I've done that. No, I just wanted to find out whether there's any, if this curriculum is in any school, and whether there will be any research to show what comes out of schools where this curriculum is implemented longitudinally, and see whether the graduates will make any changes to any country or any, any country.
Okay, so on the first question, I think part of the problem and the reason that leaders will only listen to neoclassical economists is because economists have been elevated to this almost oracle-like status, that they are all-knowing and they know what to do and that. But all of these economists, or nearly all of these economists, because of what they've been taught at uni, are neoclassical economists. So I think if you get pluralism into universities, firstly, economists actually are trained as pluralists rather than just neoclassical economists, but also by the universities and academia giving other theories airtime, then in the eyes of politicians, that will also make it seem more valuable, because a lot of societies now, particularly, I mean, I'm speaking purely from a UK perspective and a Western perspective, are what we call an econocracy, and all political goals are defined in terms of their neoclassical economic impact. So everything's about economics. Politicians completely defer to economists. So I think once you change the minds of economists, politicians will follow. In terms of getting this kind of curriculum into universities, in the UK we've got 1 or 2 places, 1 or 2 universities who started with pluralist curriculum, but it's very new. So there have been campaigns like this in the past in Australia and in France and in the States in the 90s. But we in the UK started campaigning in 2013, and in 2015 there was a new course introduced at Goldsmiths, which was the first one that was pluralist. So we're not far enough along yet to see what the impact of that will be. We just know what the impact of neoclassically trained economists is at the moment, and we think that's a bad one. So yeah, we're not far enough down the line with pluralist education to know yet.
How do you avoid a situation of you have now so many choices under pluralism that you get stuck in analysis paralysis, where you've got competing ideas for the same resources, if we can call it that? And how do you avoid getting stuck in that, not actually progressing even further?
Well, I think that's kind of the problem of politics has been sort of since time began, certainly make decisions in the other direction. And I think to some extent you can't necessarily avoid that, as long as you've got some competing theories, as long as it's a social science and that you can't have right and wrong answers, people will forever be debating and forever be analysing. But I think one of the other things that's really lacking in the economics curriculum, which we didn't touch on in this workshop, is real world application. And one of the things, as economists, as economics students anyway, you're very rarely actually dealing with statistics or the economy itself or real world situations. So you're not taught to test things and improve things based on results. And I think if economists are trained better to deal with real world data, real world economic phenomena, then they'll be better trained in being, I guess, a bit more like scientists in testing what works. And if it doesn't work, then moving on to something else. And if it does work, knowing having tried and tested it. So I think the answer to that doesn't lie in pluralism, but more in a more kind of scientific approach to economic policy and a more realistic approach.
What is preventing us here in Africa to come up with a new economics based on African philosophy like Ubuntu, for example? Why are we forced to always be inspired by these economics coming from the West? Why are we not so daring ourselves to say, okay, we are done with these economics and let us invent a new ones? Why are we so lazy? I'm challenging you.
I think it's probably not a question. It's not a question of laziness. It's a question of power. Because we have a similar problem in the UK, for me anyway, in that all the economic theories that I'm forced to learn, that are respected in government, are written by white men, white middle class men, and they don't relate to me, they don't relate to my life, I don't understand or agree with a lot of them. However, it's the people who have the power to impose curricula and the people who have the power to make economic policy are middle class white men. So I think a way to develop a policy for Africa in the African context by African people is to take, as students, is to take that power off the West and say we're not learning this anymore. We're going to learn about African scholars. We're going to come up with our own ideas. So yeah, I think it's about power rather than laziness. I think people, I'm sure students have ideas, I'm sure economists have ideas, but it's about giving them a platform to share those ideas and the resources to develop them.
Yeah, my question is an extension to his. Basically, I also have curriculum type but not practically as a matter of policy. So I don't know if when you started this initiative, if there have been any practical scenarios where you have seen like this approach being adopted, not in the school sense, but more or less in the policy spectrum. Thank you.
Again, I suppose like in the answer to the question before, it's still relatively new, and whilst obviously in this exercise, we were giving policy recommendations to the Prime Minister. We're not necessarily advocating that that is how it should work in practice, that the Prime Minister should sit around the table with 10 different economists and take their opinions. I think the idea is more, it is supposed to be about the curriculum, it's more about critical thinking skills and debating skills, because when the financial crash happened in 2008, the Queen got together a bunch of economists and said to them, why did no one see it coming? And the answer to that is because they were all singing from the same hymn sheet, and they had never been forced or even asked to develop the skill of debating and the skill of engaging with things critically. And the idea isn't necessarily to produce loads of different economists with competing ideas, but more to produce economists that are able to debate. And I suppose that, yeah, in a similar response, I think another key part of what we campaign for is not just pluralism, but also real-world application. And I think in different scenarios, so one, in a stock market crash or in a printing money scenario, it would, if economists were able to apply theories to data and able to look at history and able to look at what's gone before, that there wouldn't necessarily be 10 different competing ideas. There probably would emerge a clear winner, but it would be as a product of debate and analysis and innovation, rather than just, well, this is what neoclassical textbook says we should do, that's what we should do. And it's not without its flaws, like there would be practical problems that we have to overcome, and I haven't got all the answers to that necessarily. I just believe, and rethinking economics believes, that situation where people are debating and then go back to history and data is a better approach than going from one theory. It's not foolproof, but I think it's something.
Different ways of thinking about it are actually necessary. It's to think about the policy problem of any country. At any given moment in a country, you're dealing with issues to do with ecology and environmental issues that have come up strongly in the past 20 years or so. You're dealing with the issues of gender balance and gender inequality and all of that. And so, i.e., that is your real world scenario. And I suppose what part of what this book is doing is saying there are different ways of thinking, including the tools that you already know. So it's not the kind of throw out the baby with the bathwater, but it's to say there may be other tools and ways of thinking about some of the same problems. I think it's not necessarily displacing different frameworks with others, but saying there are clearly different viewpoints from different schools of thought. For some of the very same problems that we're still struggling with a lot in our country, in the region, in the continent, and that as well. So I think just the exercise, to thank Katrina for bringing us. Otherwise, thank you so much. Obviously, you can engage with the tea break as well. And the textbook is actually available online. I just look, it is there. Or textbook book. And she suggested possibly if there's quite a caucus of us that are interested in getting hold of the book, that maybe we put our names down and we might be able to certainly at least send the batch, if you will, that people can access and get hold of. Yeah. All right.